Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhaṃ Dhammaṃ Sanghaṃ Namasami. So, can everyone hear me okay? Everyone in the back? Okay. I'm pretty new with microphones, so. As Ajahn Kovalo just said, my name is Ajahn Nando, and I'm originally from Canada, but I've lived the last 17 years in Thailand and a bit in Australia. This will be my 15th reigns right now as a monk, and this year will be my 16th. And in all the time I've been away, been in Thailand, I've only ever come back to North America twice to visit family in Canada. This is the second time, and this is my first time in Seattle. The last time I was in mainland America was back in the 90s. I went to go visit Fargo once. So, so everything here is pretty new to me. Also, teaching a large group of Westerners is pretty new to me too. When I was thinking of maybe what I should talk about today, one of the questions some of the questions I've been getting from people lately are, people will ask me, I've been meditating for many years and I don't feel I've gotten anything in my practice. I don't feel I've gotten anywhere in my meditation. Or people also ask me, like, I've been meditating, but how do I take my meditation deeper? Like, how do I take my meditation to the next step? So the way that we would do this, and which is a set of practices which is very heavily emphasized in the Thai forest tradition, are what are called the Apaṇṇaka Dhammas. So these are known as like the teachings that are always right and never wrong. And there's three of them. The first one is indriya-saṃvara, which is sense-restraint. The second one is bhojane-mattaññutā, which is moderation in eating. And the third one is jagariyānuyoga, which is devotion to wakefulness. So again, for us, these really form the core and the heart of our practice as forest monks. And these really make the difference between how deep you want your meditation to be. So you could kind of compare it to, someone who's exercising and, wants to get fit. So, if you have someone who really wants to get in shape, wants to get that real, the gym body, the abs, the muscles, everything, you can compare the difference to someone who just goes to the gym and their whole fitness routine is just, they go to the gym once a day, they lift their weights, do their exercise there. But then outside of the gym, they just do whatever they want. They just eat junk food. They go out and drink and party. They don't get enough rest. Versus someone who they make fitness their whole life. So not only do they go to the gym, but they eat healthy food. They live an active life. They make sure to get enough proper rest. So following the Apaṇṇaka Dhammas is like the ladder. It's like making your practice a whole life practice and a holistic practice. And this is going to maximize the results within our practice. But with these things, they take time, and they're not practices we can just do once and then get the results. We have to do them over a period of time, and then we'll start to see the results from them. And when practicing them, we'll also see a lot of our attachments and a lot of our kilesas coming up. So the first one is indriya-saṃvara, which is sense-restraint. So you can break this up into two different types. So one is limiting the amount of sense contact we have, limiting the amount of things which come in through our senses. And the second one would be what's known as guarding the sense doors, or having mindfulness when we do have sense contact. So as most people probably know, in Buddhism, we have 6 senses, and we have their corresponding objects. So you have, the eye, you have sights, you have the nose, smells, tongue, tastes, ear, sounds, the body, contact or touch, and the mind and mind objects. So where we start is by trying to limit the amount that comes in through these. And you might think, well, what's the point of that? Why do we need to limit it? But anything which comes in through our 6 senses affects our mind, to the smallest extent or a greater extent. So we try to limit the amount that these things come in our minds, limit the amount that they draw the mind out, that they stir up and agitate the mind. And so we limit what comes in through this. So as for monks, we have a lot of rules in our set of monastic rules in our Vinaya that specifically address this. We're not allowed to listen to music. We don't go to shows. We only eat once a day. Again, it's not expecting lay people to follow these when they're practicing, but we specifically have rules to limit the amount of sense impingement we have and limit the amount that it stirs up our mind. But of course, living life, you have to have sense contact. You can't just live life without any type of sense contact, and just completely cutting off one of the senses isn't going to cut off the kilesas. So Luang Por Chah would tell a story about this, when he was going through his practice, he tried to play around with this. He packed his ears full of, I think it was some type of wax, so that would cut off all the hearing. And after doing this, he realized that, the defilements, the greed, hatred, and delusion, they don't arise at the ears; they arise in our minds and in our hearts. So just by cutting off one sense doesn't cut off our kilesas. It's not that people who are blind don't have kilesas, or people who are deaf don't have kilesas. But to develop our meditation, we do try to limit what comes in through our senses. But since we can't, we still live in the world and we still have to contact the world, we are still going to be using our senses. So what we have to do is what's called guarding the sense doors. So this is establishing mindfulness at all of our senses, and mindfulness when we do come into contact with a sense object, so that we're not, what the Buddha said, grasping at its signs and features. So again, one of Luang Por Chah's stories about this was once some of the monks went to complain to him about all the sounds they heard. They were trying to meditate, and there was all this sound, and they're like, "Oh, Luang Por, the sound is coming and it's disturbing us." And he said, "No, the sound's not coming in to disturb you. You're going out to disturb the sound." And so that was their minds were grasping at the signs and features of this. And so what we do is we establish our mindfulness, so that when we do see something, we don't get drawn out to it. We don't get involved in it. We don't stir up our liking and disliking, our greed, hatred, and delusion. But this doesn't mean just like you're kind of in a bit of a daze and not really registering anything which is happening. So we have to learn to practice like this and learn to restrain our senses. And the next one we have is called bhojane-mattaññutā. So this is moderation in eating. And so it's not starving yourself, but this is finding the right amount of food that's going to put us in the zone and like maximize our mindfulness. Because what you find is when you overeat, your mind becomes dull. It's harder to establish mindfulness. When different mind states, different moods, different kilesas, defilements come up, it's much harder for us to get rid of them. And we find the opposite when we don't eat enough. A lot of times we can get irritable, cranky. We don't have enough energy to put forth effort into our practice. So for us, we're trying to find that balance between eating enough so we have the energy to practice, but not overeating so that our mindfulness is weaker, that we're going to be dull and not practice so well. But of course, this takes time. You got to kind of play around with it, see what works, sometimes. And the more you practice and the more you're working at the meditation, the more you'll be able to see when you have overeaten and see when you haven't eaten enough. So you just take some time, play around with it, and see what works for you. And again, it's a practice that takes time. And and also really watch what kinds of food you're taking in as well, because we'll see that some foods will really affect us in different ways, especially around stuff like caffeine. You'll find if you drink too much coffee, you might get really jittery, talkative. You go to sit and meditate, and your mind's running a mile a minute. So, or some people find that with sugars. Some people find certain foods make them dull and sleepy. Where I ordained in Northeast Thailand, the staple food of that part of the country is sticky rice. So this is this very heavy glutinous rice. And if you eat too much of this, you get really, really tired. so you got to watch how much you eat of that, and or at least when you do eat it, make sure to do a lot of walking meditation afterwards. But but yeah, so you really want to watch and learn from, and watch your body and mind and see how it works with that. And then the next one is jagariyānuyoga, which is devotion to wakefulness. And so again, this one can be split into two different parts. So one is getting the right amount of sleep, and the second one would be what we're doing with our minds when we are awake and we're not sleeping. So getting the right amount of sleep. One of the things we find, if you oversleep, the mind, it becomes dull. It becomes really hard to establish mindfulness or any quality of mindfulness. And at least for me, I find makes me really moody, worse than undersleeping. And so you'll find when you go to meditate, you'll be dull. And sometimes you can get this just, when you've overslept, this like deep tiredness that you just can't seem to shake. And just instinctively you think, okay, I'm really tired. This must mean I haven't slept enough. I need to go sleep more, which of course is just going to just deepen this like deep tiredness you have. But on the other side, if you don't sleep enough, you can get really irritable. It can be very difficult to establish mindfulness. You can't really focus on what you're doing. And a lot of times, a lot of people, when they don't sleep enough, can get very sensitive. So at the monastery I ordained at, we have this practice of one day a week, we stay up all through the night practicing. So we'd all sit together in the sala or the meditation hall, and we'd meditate and practice throughout the night. And then the next day, when that's finished, we go out on our alms round, and then have the meal, and then go back to our kutis. But the monastery, we have a rule, because the monastery I come from is a training monastery, so there's a lot of teaching and instructing and mutual admonishment. Like if someone does something, you point it out to them. But we have this rule: the day after we stay up all night, you're not allowed to admonish anyone at all. Not allowed to point out things people do wrong, because it can get ugly. So when we're practicing, except for cases like that where we do intentionally push ourselves to stay up all night, we want to find what's the kind of the optimal amount of sleep we can get, where we're not falling into overtiredness, and we're not getting dull from sleeping too much. But then the other thing we want to do is actually, when we are awake, is to really be awake and to actually have mindfulness established throughout the day. So in the beginning, for me, when I started practicing, I got right away into books like the biography of Luang Por, who is the founder of the Thai forest tradition, and books by Luang Ta Mahabua, who is one of his most famous disciples. And their style of practice and their style of teaching is really macho. And at the time, I didn't realize what a high level of practice it was. So for continuing and being mindful all the time, they said just mentally recite Buddha all the time. And so I tried this, when I was a Bhikkhu and novice, I would try this. And they talk about when they start doing it, they would just do it for the rest of their lives, and their practice was always good, and their meditation kept getting better. And when I'd try it, it would last, maybe 30 seconds. And then, 5 or 10 minutes later, I'd realize I'd completely lost it and been thinking. And I'd get really down and get really hard on myself, like, oh, I'm a terrible novice. I'm never going to be any good at this. I'm never going to learn how to meditate. But what I didn't realize was that these are like the elite of the elite. They're like the Navy SEALs of Buddhist monks, right? So it's I was just a beginner at the time. I can't practice like a Navy SEAL, right? And so what I did to try to keep mindfulness going throughout the day and to get a continuous mindfulness was to break my day up into sections. So of course, living in the monastery is very easy to do that. So, I'd break up a section of walking from my kuti or like my hut to the sala or the meditation hall in the morning. I'd break up a section doing sweeping in the morning, break up another section of when I'm walking on Bindabat each day, and view each one of these sections as its own like a meditation period or its own meditation session, and find a specific technique of maintaining mindfulness that suited this particular time. So for example, like walking on Bindabat, I would count my steps, and it sounds simple, but one of the things it keeps the mind there, it keeps the mind in the moment, and prevents it from going off and proliferating and thinking and creating problems. And the more you do these, and the more you do it over time, you'll really start to learn about yourself and learn about your mind. Because, say for example, with the counting your steps, some days, it's super easy. You find it easy. Your mind really wants to stay with it, but then other days, you find your mind struggling, and so you have to really put more effort to keep it on that counting. And then there's other days where you just completely lose it, and no matter how hard you're trying, your mind's just going off other places. So over time, you really start to learn about your mind and learn about what it does. And so when we start practicing these, we start practicing like this. Um, our practice becomes very holistic. It's our entire life. If we choose, we can involve as much of our life as we want in the practice. So for a lot of people, especially people who have responsibilities, working jobs, having families, sometimes there's that feeling of I want to practice more, but I only have this much amount of time to do sitting meditation, or I only have so much spare time. But when you're practicing like this, practicing sense restraint, practicing moderation in eating, practicing devotion to wakefulness, and trying to keep continuous mindfulness, you can be practicing at any time in the day and anywhere you are. When I was a junior monk at Wat Pah Nanachat, there was a big sign up in the forest. This quote by Luang Por, which said, if you have time to breathe, you have time to meditate. And during my fifth pansa, my fifth rains retreat as a monk, Luang Por came to visit, and he's a very senior, very respected disciple of Luang Por, and he speaks perfect English. He did his master's in New York, and so myself, Luang Por and the abbot of Wat Nanachat, Ajahn Kavli, were driving through the parking lot and saw this sign. And Luang Por pointed it out to Ajahn Kavli, and he said, that sign's not correct. He said, that's not what Luang Por said. He said, it's not if you have time to meditate, you have time, it's not if you have time to breathe, you have time to meditate. He said, what he actually said is, if you have time to breathe, you have time to practice, because a lot of the practices we do aren't just the formal meditation. So again, like the example I gave in the beginning, it's kind of like an athlete. So at certain points, they are in the gym exercising, but what they do in the rest of their life is really going to maximize the results practicing in the gym. So I'd maybe like to offer this to everyone for a bit of reflection today, just a bit of the teachings that we get a lot in the monasteries in Thailand. So, anyone?
Thank you, Ajahn. So now we'll have a period of questions, and people who are here can just raise your hand, and we've got a microphone, and yeah, people here can ask, and we've got people on Zoom as well. If you have a question on Zoom, just raise your fleshy hand or the little upper right-hand corner hand, and we'll call on you. So yeah, Ajahn Nando really does have a lot of experience in meditation and staying with a number of really good teachers. So, Nando, thank you. I've been doing that for the last 3 days. We do know each other, lived together for quite some time, but yeah, please.
Hello? Okay. Thanks for the talk. I had one question about the sense restraint. Are there any concrete practices you can recommend for lay people to kind of practice that?
Well, of course, having the guarding the sense doors, trying to have mindfulness while you're doing things. But again, it's not, when we have mindfulness, we always use especially in the suttas, the words sati and sampajanya always come together. So just to be aware that you still have to have this all around clear comprehension and all around knowing. So again, it's not just you're in some kind of zoned out thing, and yeah, I'm just not allowing my mind to attach to these things, because you're still functioning in the world, right? So it's like if you're driving your car, you're not just I'm being super mindful and not paying attention to what's happening around you. But say for sense restraint, just be aware, because in the beginning, a lot of these things, there's a learning process. So it's not like when we start off right away, there's an exact amount of what to do and exactly what to do, because we're all different. And as our practices change, the way we do these things is going to change. So, you can limit stuff and just watch, okay, if I go and I watch a movie in the theaters, or I guess streaming now. Do they still have theaters? I've been in Thailand a long time. It's how does this affect my mind afterwards? So you can even play around just so you can see it firsthand. Like, what do I do and what does it affect me afterwards? So you go out and watch an action movie or something, and then you go and try to sit and meditate. You'll see your mind is just stirred up. All the images, all the sounds, all the action is really stirs you up. So just when you see these things which are doing that, try to reduce them. And yeah, and again, it takes time. And so just be kind to yourself when you're doing it. Sometimes we get these really strong expectations, we try to jump in and go, at 100 miles an hour right away, when it's actually, we just take it gradually. But it's the same with the other ones. There is no set amount. So for moderation in eating, there's no set amount that we have to eat. Like the Buddha didn't say you can only eat 10 mouthfuls or 20 mouthfuls of food, or you can only eat this one type of food. And so, because everyone's different, everyone's body's different. So you have to play around with a bit and see what works for you. And what works for you now can change over time. So for example, you need this amount to eat. This is what kind of works for you. But you might be doing a lot more physical activity, heavier work, more physical activity. So you might need more food to eat then. Or with sleep, the same thing. You might find this is the right amount of sleep, which is working for me right now. But then your meditation starts getting better, and you start needing less sleep. Or maybe you do something physically strenuous, again, physical activity, exercise, work. So you might need a little more sleep, or you're not feeling well, like you're sick, you've caught a cold or something. You might need a little more sleep for the recovery. So again, these things, it's not like a set, real outlined science like that. It's a bit more of an art where you've got to kind of be flexible and flow.
Thank you.
No problem.
So I have a question about guarding the sense doors. As in my practice, it's I run a business. I have a really full lay life, And I find that when I go out into nature in my garden, I actually encourage more of the inputs into sight and sound and smell to keep me more balanced from getting worked up about, the next to-do thing I have. And I, it feels like I'm not guarding my sense doors. I'm actually inviting more input, but I find that I've been doing that to create more balance and perspective. So I don't know whether that's what you would say around that.
Well, with those, look at the way it's affecting you. So, you're going out into nature. Again, having, some trees around, maybe some birds, that's not necessarily something which is going to be like negatively stimulating you, right? So it's not like, again, like comparing it to, say, an action movie. When you've sat out in nature and been able to relax, and then you go and sit and meditate, how is your mind, versus, say, you went out and went on some great adventure or something, and you came back and your mind's all stirred up. And even for monks, the Thai forest tradition, we live out in nature, because it does have this calming effect on you. So it's one of the things you see living in the forest, especially in Thailand. It's not quiet. It's not quiet at all. You've got animals. You've got the cicadas, which have this, like, I don't know, this like high pitched, like, I don't even know what you'd call it, like buzz or something. And so it's not quiet, but it's peaceful, and that having that natural thing is peaceful. And a lot of people will find, especially when they go to meditate, a lot of times we think, just jump right into the breath, right? Sit down, boom, just on the breath. But a lot of people find that, say, being aware of hearing, being aware of these things first, actually helps them ground their mindfulness in the present moment. And so, it's almost like a preparatory thing for it. So,
thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, hello. So my question is also about sense restraint. I find what's hard is at the end of a day when you got back from work, you had accumulate so much, not so much, but you have accumulate frustration and just this desire to indulge in TV or music, because as the day progressed, these little micro frustrations start to build up. And when I get home, the first thing I want is just to be on my couch and watch TV. So what's your advice? And I do think one thing that helped is to remind me that indulging in TV is not going to make me feel any better. So, but I want to prevent it earlier.
Well, yeah, that's a very important thing, is the first part, like in life, like, throughout our days, and especially, for monks, it's a little easier because we don't have that much we have to deal with. But, for lay people, like living in the world and having jobs and stuff like this, like you're saying, you can build up a lot of frustrations, a lot of all these negative emotions and throughout the day. And it is important that at the end of the day that you're able to let them go, and you want to be able to let all of them go, because if you can only let go 95% of it, you have 5% left, and then tomorrow you can only let go of 95% of what you built up. Then now you've got 10%, and over time it's gonna build up and build up, and then you're going to have a problem, or it's going to have some negative effect on you. So it is important to find a way to relax and let go of that. But again, like we want our letting go to not be so dependent on something external. And if you're able to find a way to let go internally, like say maybe do something a little physical, or try doing some we would recommend some meditation or some chanting or something to just calm your mind down. But again, this is one of those things you're going to have to find some kind of skillful mean that works for you specifically, and and play around over time. Do trial and error. See, if okay, come back home from work, you're tired, you're frustrated, and you go and sit on the couch and watch TV, and just see, okay, how do I feel afterwards? How has this changed my frustration levels? How has this changed my agitation levels? And then try with something different the next day. Okay, I'm going to try to sit meditation for a bit afterwards and see how this affects my frustration levels. And you can compare them. And it might be like, okay, so after work, you might not be able to just jump into meditate right away. Again, it might be going from 100 miles an hour to stopping right away. It's you maybe need to slow down and find something like, maybe doing some physical activity or something to slow down, some yoga, go for a walk, something like that. But just play around with it, try different techniques and compare how they affect you and your mind.
Can I follow up real quick? Sorry, my question wasn't super clear. What I meant is by the end of the day, I do sit down, meditate, and let that frustration go. But my question was really about during the day at work, how do I stop this frustration to build up so that I don't have to deal with the consequence of that at the end of the day?
Okay, sorry. So one of the things is, just keeping your mindfulness going and watching these mind states when they start coming up. Because whenever one of these negative mind states comes up, frustration, you get a little irritated at someone you're working with or someone you're dealing with, it usually starts small. But the more we proliferate on it, the more we think about it, the more we let it fester, the bigger it gets, the more of a problem it gets. So what we need to do is try to get rid of those as quickly as possible. And I don't know if Seattle gets much snow. I was just in Canada, so it's the only place I can kind of use this simile. It's like when you're driving in wintertime and driving in the snow, and there are these ruts in the snow, and the more you drive in these ruts, the deeper they get, and the more and easier they pull your car into it. And a lot of our mind states are the same way. The more we think like that, and the more we go in this direction, or the more we feed these certain thoughts and feelings, the more our mind is going to go towards them, and the deeper it is, and the harder it is to pull our mind out of that. So what we have to do is one, have the mindfulness to see when these frustrations are starting, these irritations are starting. And then we have to use some of these tools. There are a lot of different tools and techniques that we can use to get rid of these mind states or deal with these mind states. And so it's important for us to develop a few of them and have really practiced them. And because what works for us today might not work tomorrow. And so once something does come up, to start trying to let go of it as quick as possible. And then I don't know the nature of your work, but one of the other things you could try doing is if you get time every now and then to just take a few minutes to just, establish mindfulness, just mindfulness in your body, just be aware of where you're at, where your body's at, where your mind's at, and just, take a couple of minutes to maybe just try to cool it down, calm down for a bit. But that really depends on the nature of your work, if you have time to do that.
So did you say the third one is devotion?
Devotion to wakefulness.
Oh, to wakefulness.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's like one part is making sure that we get the right amount of sleep for us, and so that we're not overtired from oversleep, or we're not weak mindfulness and irritable and from undersleep.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Bhante. My question is about this idea of breaking up the day into different kind of segments and having a technique that sort of aligns with that, and then how you would define like working. How would you decide, oh, this technique is working? Because it seems like when I sit and, okay, I'm using a particular technique and I slide into boredom, well, there's an opportunity to learn about boredom, or there's an opportunity to switch techniques and try something different. So I wonder if you might speak to that a little bit.
So for once throughout the day, a lot of times, you find a technique which works based on, say, the activity. So say something like walking, it's very easy to do something which involves, the feet, walking, at that awareness of the walking. But sometimes also, say, you're about, like, say for monks, in the morning when, we wake up quite early and then we, walk to the meditation hall and practice together. So sometimes, what you'll do is, or what I'll do is practice loving kindness meditation then, because, you're bound to encounter everyone for the day. So it's better to start off with a little, loving kindness in your bank, and just in case there is something which comes up, and makes you a little more pleasant to be around. But again, with judging if these things work or not, it's you have to give it time. So you have to work at something for a bit. It's not just oh, I tried that once and it didn't work. So it'd be like if, say, you were trying to learn to play basketball, and you went in and you threw your basketball and it misses the hoop completely, and you're like, oh, well, I tried basketball, I'm no good at it, right? But you want to go back and try again and again, and over time, as you work at it, you'll develop that skill. But yeah, sometimes when I was staying with Luang Por Piak, because I had heard before that when you're meditating, you should just always try to stick to the same meditation object. And when I stayed with Luang Por Piak, I asked him this, and he was like, no. I was like, is it okay, if I've been doing, say, breath meditation for a long time and I'm having hard to keep my mindfulness on that and keep that going, is it okay if I switch it and do loving kindness meditation? He's like, yeah, of course. Like, it was like I was asked the stupidest question, right? But yeah, so if you're not able to, because you want to maintain that mindfulness, right? But again, this is one where you have to really be honest with yourself and see, when is it I'm just switching back and forth and I'm not, trying to push through and develop this meditation technique. Actually, just a few days ago, when I was at visiting Ajahn Sona's monastery up in Canada, one of the lay people out there asked me, what quality I've seen or teaching I've seen that I think was the most important for us, or one of the most important for us in practice. And for me, it's right away, it's Satya Bharami. Usually Satya is translated as truthfulness, but I think I prefer the translation honesty. If you want the really deep Pali translation, Ajahn Kovalo can help you out with that. But and this is this really being honest with ourselves, and it can be very difficult because we have these certain ideas about ourselves, where we think we are, where we think we should be, and but just being really honest with ourselves in our practice. Where am I practicing? So, like my example earlier, when I was trying to practice the Buddho practice, like Luang Por Man and stuff, it's like, yeah, I'm not there. You have to be honest. Like, this isn't working for me. This is above what I'm able to do right now, and so yeah, it's just a really important quality to develop. There was that really great quote of Mei Chi Gao in her biography. And I forget the whole quote, but the essence was, you can lie to the whole world if you want, but never lie to yourself. And so this is very, very important for us, but again, can be very difficult, Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem.
Just one more question.
Thank you, Bhante. I want you to touch upon the second thing that you talked about, eating moderately. I know monks like you eat only one meal a day. Can laymen also try to do it? And how do laymen try to get into, say, eating one meal a day? And how does it affect the layman activities and also the meditation as such?
Right. My hearing is really bad, so I just have to double check sometimes. Yeah, it's absolutely possible for a layperson to eat one meal a day. For us as monks, it's it's just in, at least in Thailand, really with the Thai forest tradition, part of our practice is eating the one meal a day. It's not all Buddhist monks have to. The Buddha allowed the monks to eat from any time between dawn and when the sun reaches its zenith. So we usually take noon. But for us, we eat the one meal a day. It's easier for monks to do it than for lay people. Not discouraging you from doing it. Like, if you'd like to, go for it. But for us, it's a lot easier because there's only food in the monastery at one time a day. It's we eat our meal, we put our bowls away, and there's no opportunity at all to eat. So the temptation isn't there as much. Like I remember when I was a layman, I was trying to keep the 8 precepts as a layperson, and I found that much more difficult to keep the 8 precepts as a layperson than the 227 as a monk, because because everyone around you is practicing it, and like I said, if you're a monk and you want to break the rules, you've actually kind of got to go out of your way to do it. You've got to make an effort to break them. Whereas, in lay life, being around people who are all eating dinner and stuff like this, it's more difficult. But if you'd like to, go for it, give it a try. I'm not at all trying to discourage you, but just make sure when you do it, see how it works for you. Make sure you eat enough or not too much, and just, again, it takes time in the beginning. What you see is you always see it when people come and stay at the monastery. When they first arrive and start eating the one meal a day, at first their weight drops and they'll lose like 7 to 10 kilos, usually fairly quickly. But then what happens is your metabolism gets used to it and starts stabilizing, and then they'll start gaining the weight back. And so it's pretty normal. You see it everyone who comes and stays in the monastery.